I never expected silence to arrive through plastic. The badge clicked once against the scanner, then nothing. No green light, just a faint red flash, like a quiet correction. I tried again. Same result. The door didn't move. Behind me, I heard the soft shuffle of someone stopping but not approaching. I didn't turn. I already knew it was Tara. Her sneakers always squeaked a little on the tile. I reached into my bag again, checked the card, as if it might have warped in my wallet. Nothing unusual. Still laminated. Still mine. I held it again to the scanner. Red. Again. Maybe it's the sensor, Tara's voice almost a whisper. It's been weird lately. I didn't answer, just nodded once, though I knew the sensor wasn't the problem. Brian stepped out of the elevator with his travel mug. He saw us hesitated, then tapped his badge against the reader. The door clicked open. He held it a moment too long, as if unsure if he should say something. He didn't. I stepped through. No one stopped me. No one welcomed me back. By the time I reached the break room, the machine was already grinding out coffee. I focused on pouring oat milk into the cup I kept above the sink, a faded ceramic mug with a hairline crack I'd covered in resin years ago. It had survived every desk shuffle, every intern turnover. I wrapped my fingers around it just as he entered. Claire! My office. Now. No greeting, no pause. I followed him down the hall, not because I was unsure, but because it was easier than asking why. He stood by the window, didn't sit, didn't offer one. The blinds were half drawn. His tie wasn't quite centered. You're done here. Effective immediately. You've been holding the team back. I looked at the coffee stain on his folder, small circular dried at the edges. My name wasn't on it. I waited for the reason. Not the excuse, the reason. But he had already turned back to his desk, shuffling papers like menus. You can collect your things and leave. HR's been notified. I nodded once. Understood. Walking past the cubicles, I caught the shift in posture, the stillness of eyes that didn't meet mine, the silence of people I'd mentored, trained, covered for. No one stood. No one spoke. Back at my desk, the cactus I'd brought from home still sat on the shelf, dry but not dead. I wrapped it in a scarf from the drawer, folded the ends gently around the pot, and placed it into the box without tape. I didn't label it. There are moments when a question forms but never reaches the mouth. This was one of them. And I've learned when silence speaks first, it's often best to let it finish. Some things survive longer when you stop asking them to bloom. The cactus in the corner of my desk hadn't flowered in years. Still I turned its pot a 1/4 inch every Friday, the way I'd once read in a guide about office lighting. It never asked for more, and neither did I. I used to answer emails during holidays without being asked. One Thanksgiving I stepped out between dinner and dessert to take a call with Karen Mitchell. The oven was still warm, the pie untouched. 5 minutes, I'd told my father as he poured wine. He didn't look up. You always pick work over the people sitting at your table. I didn't explain that the Kingswell team was in Dubai, and 5 minutes here meant their morning kickoff. I just stepped outside, phone pressed to my ear, letting the cold settle into the fabric of my dress. In one review, meeting 6 months back, I outlined a new client intake system, color-coded flags for urgency-timed handoffs between departments. Chloe Morgan took notes, lips tight. We'll run it by Bradley when he's available. He never was. No one asked about it again. Lisa Matthews once interrupted me mid-sentence while I was presenting year-end metrics. She tapped her pen twice on the conference table. Can we stick to the numbers? We don't need your commentary. So I stopped including context. Just figures and bullet points. I built a small training module on my own time for incoming staff after watching Tara struggle with onboarding. It was simple video clips, a glossary, a few guided tasks. Bethany Ross scanned the outline briefly. It's a good gesture, but we don't have budget for non-essential resources. The folder sat untouched on the shared drive. No one deleted it. No one used it. I never argued. Not one. I adjusted, shrank, streamlined. Even when I stayed late to fix a broken export file for Eric in finance, while my coat hung limp on the back of my chair, seams still damp from a walk through rain. I didn't say I was tired. I just made sure his numbers lined up. My badge still worked then. The scanner had blinked green. The door had opened without pause. There's a kind of loyalty that doesn't show up in reports or raise cycles. It doesn't make noise. It just waits for acknowledgement, for air, for something more than survival. And sometimes it waits too long. Some things disappear without ever being taken. I scrolled through the archived emails without knowing what I was looking for. The threads were clean, the formatting consistent. Subject lines about performance partnerships, end-of-quarter acknowledgements, the kind that usually land after a successful quarter when names are listed and thanks are scattered like confetti. One email caught my eye. The subject, outstanding cross-team collaboration. I remembered the project. It had fallen apart 3 times before I stepped in. I'd rewritten the client brief, restructured the delivery timeline, and called in a personal favor to expedite the contract. The message thanked Rachel Bennett for her initiative in leading resolution, and Chloe for coordinating communication across departments. No mention of the client file I'd rebuilt from scratch. No CC to me. The final line read, "Teamwork like this keeps us moving forward." During the company holiday party 3 years ago, Franklin Carter raised a glass mid-speech. "I'm proud of the young talent bringing fresh perspective our marketing leads, Rachel and Chloe. You're the future of this company." I stood near the drinks table, holding a plastic flute of sparkling cider. My name never left his lips. Neither did anyone else's from my team. There was a Christmas card tucked into my desk drawer for years, one of those mass-printed ones with snowflakes and scripted font. "To the team, thank you for your hard work." No signature, no envelope, just left on everyone's chair. Rachel's had her name handwritten across the front. Mine didn't. I signed my first 6-figure client when I was 29, a niche logistics firm with a complicated back end. After months of rewrites and late-night calls, they signed the dotted line. The next morning, my then supervisor dropped a file on my desk. "Good. Let's move on." I never asked for celebration, but I think once I hoped someone might look up. There's a ring I used to wear on my right hand, a thin silver band with a faint engraving on the inside. It caught the light when I typed, when I poured coffee, when I gestured during presentations. I stopped wearing it the year after that contract, not because it meant less, but because I started listening to what wasn't being said. And eventually, I heard it louder than applause. Some power doesn't come from being chosen, but from being forgotten last. The call came before I'd changed out of the clothes I'd folded the night before. I let it ring once, then again. The name on the screen didn't blink. I answered without speaking. "Why did you leave?" The voice on the other end had no shape, just pressure, not concern. More like someone realizing they'd dropped something breakable and only now hearing the sound. "Bradley let me go." "Yesterday." Silence followed. A breath, maybe 2. Then paper shifting chair, scraping something heavy, knocked against wood. You're the only authorized signatory on Kingswell. Your name is in clause 17. I put it there myself. I stared at the mug in front of me, the one with a chipped rim I never bothered to replace. The liquid inside had gone cold, a ring curling toward the center like a closing eye. He didn't read it came next, quiet final. Jesus. I didn't reply. There was a time when that would have sent me running. Pulling up files, drafting an apology, no one asked for, finding a way to fix what someone else had cracked. I would have walked back into the office with printed reports and printed restraint. This time, I stayed where I was. The phone buzzed again an hour later. Bradley, then Chloe, then someone from accounting, legal, one after the other. The names that used to live in my inbox now stacked themselves along the screen like a list of borrowed things. I didn't answer. A new voicemail every 20 minutes. Most started with my name. Only one began with please. The inbox lit up next meeting, invites, document requests, and agenda marked urgent. I watched them fill the corner of my screen, then let the laptop sleep. Control doesn't always come with noise. Sometimes it settles in the air like dust, unnoticed until the sun hits it. I folded a napkin around the mug to stop it from marking the table. The stain from the morning had already set in, pale and shaped like a fingerprint. I didn't wipe it. When something breaks because it wasn't understood, fixing it too quickly only invites it to be broken again. This time, I waited. Not for permission, just to see who would understand what silence meant. Power sometimes looks like nothing at all. The text came mid-morning, short, just a single line from Rachel. Everything's falling apart. He brought the contract into the meeting. I didn't ask which contract. I knew. She followed with a second message. He asked him, "Did you even read this before firing Claire?" No answer. I closed the screen, let the phone dim on its own. I didn't send an explanation, just one reply, measured and precise. "I'll return to finalize the agreement under written terms only." There was no apology in return, no justification, just an acknowledgement. "We'll make it official. You'll have full autonomy." I didn't go through the service entrance. The lobby doors opened without resistance, like they had forgotten what happened. Or never cared. The badge scanner blinked green, though I didn't use it. At the front desk, Megan Riley stood abruptly, her chair catching slightly on the mat. "Miss Whitman, Mr. Carter is expecting you." "This way." She didn't finish the sentence. I nodded once slow, and without pause. Every step down the hallway felt different than the last time I walked it. Eyes lifted from monitors, then dropped again. The murmur of keys and paper stopped too quickly, like someone switching off a sound before it could name itself. No one smiled. No one welcomed me back. Inside the office, Franklin stood beside the door. Not behind the desk, not offering a handshake. He gestured toward the chair across from him. "Let's talk plainly. What happened was never supposed to happen. I didn't sit right away." He placed a copy of the revised agreement between us. Fresh ink, still crisp. "You'll oversee Kingswell. Solely. And Bradley won't be involved." I scanned the first few lines. My name appeared in bold near the top. The margins were wide, the signature block untouched. I gave a slight nod. "And next time it won't be me. It could be someone quieter." His voice lowered. "It won't happen again." He looked tired. Not old, just worn in a way ambition rarely forgives. I stood without folding the paper, slipped it into my bag without ceremony. Bradley was at the far end of the corridor as I left, speaking too closely to someone I didn't recognize. His arms were crossed, but his voice wasn't firm, just rehearsed. He turned when I passed, met my eyes, then broke contact first. I kept walking. Not faster. Not lower. There are things louder than anger, and I had already chosen one. Freedom doesn't always feel like a door opening. Sometimes it feels like not being followed. I didn't stay for the debrief. The final handshake came without another meeting request. There was no corridor conversation, no final remark from the hallway. I walked out of the boardroom with the documents in my bag, and no one behind me. Back at home, I opened an old folder buried beneath years of renamed files. The title line still used my maiden initials, CW, Client, Intro to V1. It was the first contract I ever drafted. The formatting was rigid, the tone overly formal, the margins too narrow. I had annotated everything in blue. I used to think that showing effort was enough to prove value. Now I knew better. Value when seen too late looks a lot like damage control. I went to the grocery store mid-morning. No line, no pressure. I picked up only what I could carry without a cart. A bundle of asparagus, a quart of milk, the off-brand coffee that came in a soft gold pouch. I held it longer than I needed to. The absence of the corporate card in my wallet made the checkout slower, but the bag in my hand felt lighter. Later, while sorting old paperwork, a scarf slipped out of a box marked Misk. Soft grey wool, loose knit, a corner slightly unraveling. A gift from a former intern, Julia, I think, who had once written me a thank you note in Sharpie because the office printer jammed. I folded the scarf along the old crease, smoothed the frayed edge with one finger, and set it beside my desk lamp. I didn't put it back in the box. The notebook I chose wasn't new, just blank enough. The cover was soft leather worn near the edges. I opened to the first page, wrote the date in the top right, and paused. I didn't write about them. Not the company, not the fallout, not the correction. Just a list of what I remembered doing well in the order no one ever asked me to name. Organized intake schedules, de-escalated client calls, translated stakeholder briefs between departments who never spoke directly. There's a difference between recording facts and reclaiming narrative. I didn't decorate the page, no color coding, just ink and margin. I kept the notebook closed on the desk, not hidden. No password, no post-it labels. I didn't need anyone else to read it. I only needed to remember it wasn't erased. Recognition that arrives too late often asks to borrow your face, not your name. The first email came with no subject line. Just, hope you're well, great job on the deal. It was signed by Brian, though I hadn't heard from him since the day he looked away by the elevator. No specifics, no question. Just enough to mark the date. Bethany's arrived an hour later. Let's catch up soon. Your insight's always been valuable. I read it twice. The timestamp said 11:47 a.m., midway through the team's Thursday stand-up. By afternoon, there was one from Jeffrey. He attached a flyer about an upcoming training series. We'd love for you to open the session. A familiar face would mean a lot. The word familiar lingered longer than it should have. Later that week, Chloe's message arrived. Bradley asked if you could attend next month's strategy offsite. It wouldn't be the same without you. No mention of what changed. No reference to the closed door or the silent hall. Another invitation came in printed form, thicker cardstock cream with navy accents. In appreciation of our success with Kingswell, the media team is filming a thank you reel. Your presence would mean a great deal to the company. I placed it unopened beneath a coaster. When Franklin called to arrange lunch, I said yes. Not because I wanted to hear him, but because I needed to see if the script had changed. He chose a table by the window, waved off the server before the menu opened. "We've all made mistakes, Claire, but at the end of the day, we're still a family." I didn't touch the bread he broke in half. A family doesn't forget who opened the door until it's time to take the photo. He didn't answer, just slid a new business card across the table. My name in serif font, centered in silver ink. A revised title beneath. "You belong in this room." The card was thick smooth at the edges. I turned it once between my fingers. No embossed logo. Just wait. I stood before the entrees arrived, placed the card beside the water glass, and tucked the cloth napkin back into its ring. There's a silence that doesn't need closure, only clarity. And I'd already made my choice. Stillness isn't the absence of movement. It's knowing I no longer need to chase anything. I started waking up before my alarm, not out of urgency, but because my body no longer confused stillness with neglect. I brewed coffee without checking the clock, cracked an egg without refreshing my inbox, and left the dishes in the sink without apology. The running came slowly. 2 blocks at first, then 4. I didn't time it. I didn't record the distance. I just ran until the hum in my chest matched the rhythm of my feet. The shoes were old soles, slightly worn, laces soft from use, but they stayed tied. Megan's email came midweek. "I just got offered the full-time role. I wanted to say thank you. You were the only one who ever used my name." I typed back without punctuation. "You earned it." The cursor blinked once before I pressed send. A new project arrived in my inbox from a startup based in Vermont. No NDA yet, just an outline of goals, a shared drive folder, and a note that read, "We're building this slowly. We'd love to hear your input. No promises, no fanfare, but the trust was built into the tone." During the first Zoom call, I spotted Tara Caldwell in the corner tile. Her backdrop was minimal, but her posture had changed, confident still. She didn't flinch before speaking. I sent a private message, "Good to see you here." She replied within seconds, "I wouldn't be here if I hadn't seen how you handled it." I didn't respond, not because I didn't want to, but because I had already heard what mattered. There's a faded denim shirt in my closet I haven't worn in years. The seams are thinning at the elbows, the collar softened beyond its original shape. I wore it the day I interviewed for my first role. I thought about donating it last month, but didn't. Not because I'm keeping the past, but because some things remind me who I chose to become. The difference now is small, measured in quiet choices. What I answer, what I don't explain, what I no longer hope others will see first. Respect I've learned is quieter than praise, and far more difficult to give myself. But now I do. Letting go doesn't always require grief. Sometimes it just requires no reply. At the bank, I slid the document across the desk without commentary. The clerk wore a navy vest with a fraying seam near the shoulder. His fingers moved quickly, efficient, impersonal. I watched the numbers transfer on his screen. The ownership box beside the company's name turned grey. He looked up. "Would you like to reinvest this in another holding?" I shook my head once. No pause. No explanation. The letter I'd written fit on a single page. No bold, no underline. I resign from all advisory roles at Carter & Co. Thank you for 11 years and for the silence that taught me what endurance truly sounds like. I printed 3 copies, folded each by hand. No envelope had my return address. Franklin's was left at the front desk. Rachel's slid under her door. Mark's I placed in the inside pocket of his blazer while he stepped away from the table to take a call. No one responded. That too was an answer. I drove out to the town where my parents used to live. The welcome sign had been repainted. The gas station at the corner was now a coffee shop. I didn't stop. The house still stood beige with the same sloped porch and warped siding. A new family lived there now, wine chimes in the window, a yellow tricycle parked near the steps. I didn't knock. I sat in the car with the engine running long enough to remember how the front door always stuck in the winter, how the screen creaked even when you tried to hold it still. On the way back, I pulled off the highway and stepped into a roadside gift store, mostly mason jars and hand-stitched signs. I found a narrow glass vase, the kind that can't hold much weight. I bought it without looking at the price. At home, I filled it with dried lavender from the pantry, stems slightly bent from the drawer, tips curling inward. The scent didn't fill the room, but it stayed close to the surface, small. I logged into the old email one last time. The banner still showed the company logo in the corner, slightly pixelated from years of resizing. No unread messages, just the usual digests. At the bottom of the screen, a line in small grey font, unsubscribe from all. I clicked once. There was no confirmation screen, just a quiet refresh. And that was enough. Peace doesn't arrive all at once. It gathers slow and quiet in places I used to overlook. I filled the kettle without watching the clock. The stove ticked as it warmed. My mug waited near the edge of the counter, a thin crack down one side, barely noticeable unless you knew where to look. I didn't mind. Some things hold just fine without repair. Steam rose steadily. I let the tea steep without stirring the water, darkening slowly around the leaves. The window fogged where the heat met glass. Outside, the sky hadn't yet decided what kind of morning it would be. The notebook lay open, one page half filled. No one approves your life. You live it, or you don't. I didn't add more. Not today. A bird landed on the sill wings tucked tight, not singing, just still. We watched each other without purpose. I moved the vase of lavender closer to the light. The stems drooped slightly. The colour had faded, but the shape remained. The glass caught the sunlight and split it into faint gold lines across the table. Rachel's words echoed softer than I remembered. People notice when you leave, but they only respect you when you don't ask them to. No one was watching now. I didn't need them to. I lifted the mug careful with the chipped side. The tea was lukewarm, untouched. One breath in, not an ending. Not a triumph, just stillness held without asking. And that was enough.